What?
This is the best year ever. Let's say this together.
This is the best year ever.
And the reason, ever. And the reason why this is the best year ever is because we're creating our own life. We're creating our own choices, and we've already decided that it's going to be, and it already is, the best year ever. Now, you might have thought that the last year was the best year ever, and it was because it was last year, and at that time, it was the best year ever. So now we're getting the best year ever again because we're topping last year. So you can continually say that this is the best year ever, or the best day ever, because it can get better and better. Every day can build on itself, and it can get better and better. As a matter of fact, I want to acknowledge our little people in the back row. Hi! We want to consciously choose to build a youth program here. So we're welcoming all kids at this time because we want to know that they're welcome in the service, and soon our intention is that we'll be able to have a youth program going on. So the consciousness of the youth is going to build our consciousness of our future, and I want to welcome them to Center for Spiritual Living Peninsula. This is a place where we're here to grow and learn and build together. And play, of course. It's one of our core values is fun, by the way. So we'll be exploring fun later on this year. This month, we're exploring freedom. And our annual theme this year is Say Yes. So we're saying yes to freedom, which is one of our core values. I was given an idea for my talk today from my mom. Thanks, Mom. Hey, Mom. She saw a PBS documentary on, what's it called? It's the Road Trip Nation. So I don't know if any of you have listened to this or seen it. But there's a bunch of young adults that are going around the country. They're getting in Winnebagos, and they're driving, and they're interviewing people all around the country who are happy and successful in their jobs. So they're not just successful, but they love doing what they do. And one of these interviews was with the Food Network host, Gail Gand. And they asked her, how did she start getting into, she's a pastry chef, how did she get into this field? Originally, she was into art. She was 10 years old, and she got into beading. In high school, she went into goldsmithing and silversmithing. She took 3 years of art school in college. And one day, she was in college, and she realized that she loved her waitressing job more than she loved her art school. And so something was kind of off there, right? And so she continued waitressing. And one day, one of the line cooks called in sick. And so they said, hey, can you help us out, Gail? And she said, why, yes, I can. So she said yes. And she stepped into doing the line cook. And she had so much fun that day. She realized that she loved to cook. She'd never cooked before. She had never explored this avenue. But she said yes to something that she had never done. And that's where she got on the kick of realizing that she wanted to be a chef. And her idea was to quit her job, go to France for a little while, and just book reservations at the most expensive restaurants with the best chefs all over France. And so she'd book her reservation at 6 p.m. and then she'd show up at 3 p.m. And of course they'd say, well, your reservation is at 6 p.m. And she said, oh, I must have made a mistake. Well, since I have nothing else to do, can I stay here and maybe just hang out in your kitchen and just watch people? And they'd ask the chef, and the chef would say, oh, sure, no problem. And so she'd just sit in the kitchen and watch people, and soon, the prep cook would tell her, oh, if you just do a little bit of this, and if you just do that. And so she started making friends with everybody in the kitchen. And by the end of the time, the 3 hours, she was friends with everybody in the kitchen. Sometimes they'd ask her to help, sometimes they wouldn't, but they'd give her all these tips and tricks on how to make meals. And by the time she got her meal, she knew how to make it from the best chefs around. And she did it by being courageous. She didn't go to some fancy cooking school. She just sat in on her reservation. She just asked if it was possible for her to do that. And it turns out she actually met Julia Child. And Julia Child said, don't tell anybody you don't have any experience. Just tell them you always learned on the field. Learned on the field. So whenever anybody asks you if you know how to do something, just say yes. And you'll learn as you go. Just say yes. So that's our theme this year, is saying yes. And Gail Gand encouraged everybody to say yes. If you have something that you want to do, go out and do it. Maybe you need to go find a mentor. Maybe you need to go find somebody who knows how to do it. Ask them how they do it. Ask them what they've done. Volunteer for free to go do it somewhere. Be an intern. Ask for a couple hours where you can just do a free internship. So take those opportunities to see and find out what is your passion. And maybe you don't know. You can sample all kinds of things and just try them out. Do something you've never done before. And I'd encourage you to say yes to things that you've never said yes to this month. It reminds me of, I took a class one time and they were talking about, let's say there's a basketball game. Well, let's say there's a football game. Go Niners. Let's say there's a football game. And everybody is watching. They're all spectators. And then there's the players who are playing the game. And I want to ask you, is this your life? Are you being a spectator in your life, or are you playing the game? Are you in the stands, observing everybody else, watching everybody else, yelling at everybody else at the way that they're doing things? Or are you actually involved in your own life, making the decisions, making the play, taking advantage of everything that you have, all the possibilities that are open to you? And maybe you're fumbling, or maybe you're not, but it doesn't matter because you're playing the game. So are you in the stands, or are you playing the game? There was our theme this year is, our theme this month again is Say Yes to Freedom. And there was a preschool teacher who was teaching her class about freedom. And she said the great thing about our country, living here in America, is that we're all born free. And this one little kid came up to her and he said, I am not free, I am poor. That's right. I love David's talk. He had no idea, of course, how well this fits into our theme. I mean, he knew what our theme was Say Yes to Freedom. However, this next story I'm going to tell you is actually from an article in Men's Health magazine. And the title of the article, which is about foreclosure, is Just the Financial Disaster We Needed. The economic meltdown cost him his home and his lofty lifestyle, so why does he consider himself a very rich man? There was a man, and he was making a six-figure income, and he and his wife, he had everything. He moved to New York, he got this loft apartment, he had year-long tickets to the Mets game, he had show tickets, he had a nanny, he had paid for after-school programs, he had his own personal accountant, he had the car, he had the huge place, and he lost his job. And everything came crashing down. He lost everything. He couldn't support this lifestyle that he had, and he had to have his house foreclosed upon, and he lost everything that he thought he wanted. And it turns out that he couldn't afford to pay for the cable, or he couldn't afford to pay for things anymore. Everything was taken away. And what he had left was his family and his time together. You see, he said, we spent so much time before I got this great job making love with my wife. And after I got this job, I spent so much time making money just to support my wealthy lifestyle. And he realized after he lost everything that he was the richest man that could ever be. So he was connected. He thought that it was the job that made him something, but it wasn't. It was who he was as a person that made him something. So maybe some of you are out there and feel like you're connected to, burdened by a job, a house, maybe an unhealthy relationship that you're in, and you don't know if it's the right time to get out. Well, this article has 6 suggestions to think about how to figure it out. Here's a quote from the woman who wrote the article, Sandra Nygaard. The question is, should you just walk away? In most situations, foreclosure, a contentious relationship, an unsatisfying job, you do have options. We are taught, especially as Americans, to win at all costs, to never give up. But often, that's the wrong choice. Answer these questions before you make your move. Question number 1, does the situation conflict with your values? Find out what's really important to you. If you value family time, then it doesn't really work to have a 7-figure job that's working 80 hours a week. So find out what your values are, and then see if it's in alignment with your values. What will walking away cost? So write down the pros on one side of the paper, the cons on another side of the paper. Judge each of the lines that you put on there. Give it a number 1 to 3, and then find out what the costs are for each of those rows. Is it gonna cost more, or is it gonna cost less? Are my pros more than my cons, or vice versa? Are you compromising your health and happiness? It is natural to have a down day or have an unhappy experience. However, if you've noticed that over a long period of time your health and happiness is compromised, it might be time to let something go. It might be time to let something go. Are you at a breaking point? Establish clear, tangible boundaries. For instance, if you have a partner who has violent outbursts, and you want to change that, say what your boundaries are. You can have one more violent outburst, and then I'm leaving. Or if I see this again, I'm leaving. And then when it happens, leave. Because that will help free you from that unhealthy situation. Is your desire to free temporary? If you repeatedly feel like walking away for the exact same reasons, chances are the situation isn't going to change. And the last thing is, a year from now, will you regret your decision? My wife and I had a home, and we bought a home at the top of the market. As you all know, the market crashed, and it turns out, we were in this home for 5 years, it turns out it was not a good choice for us. And our house was in a neighborhood that was an up-and-coming neighborhood at the time, and the up-and-coming neighborhood down and went. And we were both really unhappy in our house. And so last year, about a year ago, we went through a short sale, and we released our house. So we sold it for half the price that we bought it for, and it completely affected our credit. And I have to say, it is the best thing that I've ever done. We are so happy in our new neighborhood. We have this amazingly fabulous neighborhood. We have great neighbors that are supportive. We have a really wonderful place that we love and adore. It has a great feeling. And there's no mattresses that get put on top of our yard, or couches that get thrown out there, or 15 shopping carts, in our driveway. So yeah, it was pretty bad. And I have to say, so I'm standing up here. Part of being a minister is you get to be authentic and transparent with everybody. I'm a normal human being, just like all of you. And it was a really difficult decision to make, because it does affect things. But what did it affect? It affected my happiness. What's more important, my happiness or my ego about the fact that I wanted to keep this house? Yeah, I had an ego about it. I really wanted to keep it. I felt like I had an obligation that I had to keep it, and I didn't. I let it go, and I'm such a free woman now. I'm such a happy woman. So consider that whenever you're looking at something in your life that you might want to release. President Roosevelt had a vision about freedom that he told Congress in 1941, actually January of 1941. He said, "We look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of every person to worship God in his own way, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear." So these 4 things. And fear is often a way that we limit our life. We box ourselves up because we're afraid of the unknown. There's this quote, and I don't always get it right, so it's something like, we're afraid of unknown heavens. We're more afraid of unknown heavens than known hells. We're more afraid of unknown heavens than known hells. So our own fear keeps us from moving forward, keeps us from making a chance, taking a new direction, doing something different that we've ever done because we've never done it before. Or maybe we had failed at one time, and now we're afraid to do it again. There's a Chinese character for crisis, and in the Chinese language, the character for crisis is actually a combination of 2 other characters. The first character is danger. The second character is opportunity. Danger and opportunity. So, are you walking towards the door that is closing, or are you going towards the door that is opening up? Are you walking towards that door that is closing, or going to the door that is opening up? You see, every crisis that we have in our life, if you're going through crisis right now, that it is an opportunity to evolve. It is an opportunity to evolve. So every contrasting experience that you have in your life is an opportunity for you to evolve into the next level. Perhaps that's what the pushing point is for you to take it to the next level. I'm sorry, I'm going to use your story today, if you don't mind. Is it okay? So, Laura, thank you. Laura was telling me before service today about how she got laid off from a job. And then she got another job, and it was better than she could have ever imagined. And she had been working in her job for 25 years, you said? Her one job for 25 years, and she thought it was amazing. She thought it was magnificent. And she got laid off. And when she got this new job, she was open to a whole new world of possibility, that there was even something better out there in the world for her that she didn't even know about. So this challenge of being laid up gave her the opportunity to evolve into something new, into a new experience, into a new expression. So instead of feeling like, oh wow, this terrible thing that's happening to me is the worst thing in the world, maybe this is your opportunity to evolve into something better. Maybe this is your opportunity to say yes to the universe in a way that you have never experienced it before. There's a story, I love this story. This is actually a true story. It was an experiment that was conducted by scientists. And what they did is they bought redfish and yellowfish, and they put them in this enormous rectangular tank. And they put a glass partition between the 2 of them. And so there's the redfish on one side and the yellowfish on the other side. And they left them in there for a really long time. And then one day they took the partition out. And the funny thing is, they never crossed to the other side. Ever. They never crossed to the other side. Because they thought that that partition was still there. They were conditioned to think that there was something blocking them from their freedom. I'd like to invite you to think about, what are the partitions that you might have in your life? What are the things that you thought were there that aren't really there? And how many of you are staying on one side of the fish tank because you don't know that you can go to the other side? That you're free to go to the other side because there's a mental block that you might have preventing you from doing that. So I'd invite you to think about, what are those things those fears, those glass spheres that aren't really real anymore, that are preventing you from achieving the life of your dreams. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it again. I am here invested in you having the life of your dreams, and it's absolutely possible. And so I'd encourage you to say yes, to think about what it is in your life that you want to do, that you want to be, that you want to create. And say yes and just do it. Be like Nike, just do it. So we have our Say Yes passes. If you were not here last week, would you raise your hand? We have a free Say Yes pass just for you. So you can say yes to freedom this month. And on our free Say Yes pass, we have 4 affirmations. I'd like to invite you to say these affirmations every day for you to become, to embody the person I already know that you are, the amazing, free, and powerful person. So let's pray.